So Bahi and I finally got around to watching what I think is already one of my favorite movies of 2025. It is The Life of Chuck, which is based on a novella by Stephen King, and this is, of course, directed and written by Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan, of course, is responsible for The Haunting of Hill House and Midnight Mass and The Fall of the House of Usher and Doctor Sleep, and, he is a modern horror maestro, if you will. Like, he hasn't quite dropped the ball. I mean, Bly Manor wasn't great, but it still had some signature moves, which I really enjoyed. Life of Chuck, however, is a real motherfucking experience.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe this movie. I read the novella after watching the movie. I'm glad I did it that way, because I will say it is a faithful, almost slavish adaptation. In this case, not necessarily a bad thing, because Stephen King is very cinematic to begin with. If you've read any of his novels, you'll understand why there are, I think, like 4 or 5 Stephen King adaptations this year alone. People look at them, people read them and go, this I need to see on the screen, right? And The Life of Chuck is no different. I don't know how to describe the story without spoiling it per se, so I will say this. It is a movie that unfolds in 3 chapters. It kind of plays out in reverse order. So you discover what is happening to the titular Chuck as the movie progresses. There are times it feels like 3 individual films, but that's not a bad thing, because all of it kind of works together to tell the story of this life and everything that kind of makes up this life. It is based on that quote, on that poem, I contain multitudes. And everything about this movie is kind of built around that idea that every single life means something and every single life contains multitudes. I think that is all I want to say, because I went in with less knowledge than that.
Right.
And so even as I was watching it, I was like, what is happening? Where is this movie going? And then when all of the pieces kind of fall into place, I was like, oh.
This movie is a hard one to review because you almost want to...
You want people to just watch it, right?
Yeah, and you want to talk to people who have seen the movie.
Yes.
Because there isn't one particular thing that you just be like, oh, remember that bit? Because that would almost be taking moments out of context, because the whole movie is the moment, and I feel like I really enjoyed it holistically. If somebody was to ask me what I thought of the film, I'd be like, oh, it's a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. And then people go like, why'd you like it? I don't know how to answer that question, because
Same.
It isn't any one thing.
As professional critics, it is very difficult for us to say, I don't know how to answer that question, but we don't know how to answer that question because it's a mood, right? There is something about this film. You don't want to dumb anything down, but it's schmaltzy. It kind of leans in on nostalgia. There are horror elements. There are sci-fi elements. There are fantasy elements. There's real human drama that's built around just really compelling characters who sometimes you meet for like 30 fucking seconds. And yet, like,
that's it. That's all you need.
There is a moment when Chiwetel Ejiofor is walking down the street and he runs into another individual. And the both of them decide to walk together. I think they maybe share about 2 or 3 minutes of screen time. And yet the writing is so compelling, you give a shit about this guy you just encountered.
So there are 2 things I want to say here. One, I think Mike Flanagan is both the best and worst person to make this adaptation. And hear me out. I think he's the worst person because you come into it thinking, oh mate, this is another Mike Flanagan joint. It's going to be creepy. It's going to be scary. You know, I know the trailer's been all fun and games, but I'm sure that's a rug pull. Mike Flanagan's going to give me some devil worshipping, vampire horn eating something, right? And it isn't. And I feel like if you come into this hoping for a Mike Flanagan Netflix thing, you're going to be sorely disappointed because it is not that at all.
Before you get into the best reason why,
Yeah.
that is also true of Stephen King. People know Stephen King as the horror guy, but actually, Stephen King is also the Shawshank guy. Stephen King is also the Green Mile guy.
Everything you describe this movie as having come from a Stephen King's sort of brains, also means that it's the best version of that, because Stephen King horror movies are not about the horror. Stephen King horror movies are about the humans who have to deal with the horror, the humans who have to live within that horror world. And I think that's why I love this film, because yes, it has all these elements of horror. I use the term element here very liberally, because unless you sit down and watch it and think about it, you will then go, oh yeah, I guess that's a little bit of horror. Oh yeah, I guess that's a little bit of sci-fi. Because the sci-fi is not the point. The horror is not the point. The point is the characters who are living here, the characters who are dealing with this day to day. I think Mike Flanagan is also the best guy to do this, because even in all those other horror movies you mentioned, Uma, Haunting of Hill House, which is, I think, his strongest one yet, it is still about the people who have to deal within the horror. Yes, it has jump scares, but the jump scares are not the point. The jump scare is not to scare you, the audience. It is to scare the character in the film, who then have to deal with what just happened. And I feel like that's important. I think that is what a lot of horror movies tend to forget. A lot of horror movies are written as a roller coaster for the audience, but yet the characters are not going through a roller coaster moment. And I feel like Stephen King and Mike Flanagan never forget about the characters in the movie that you are watching.
And this is also truly an ensemble piece, right? When you
Yeah.
talk about characters, listen, I know Tom Hiddleston's name is on the poster.
I feel like that's a fucking
He is
sellout.
not
Like,
the lead of this movie. He is barely in this movie, if you think about it. He is in one chapter.
He is, by some loose definition, the lead of this movie, because he plays the character Chuck that the movie is based on. But that is it.
But that is it, right?
Yeah.
It is instead this real ensemble piece, and Mike Flanagan writes for all of these characters. Like, he writes so much for all of these characters. Chiwetel Ejiofor is amazing. Matthew Lillard is in this for a brief moment. Yet again, he is this everyman. He is this everyman that's kind of unloading his problems on Chiwetel Ejiofor, but yet it is just written so well that you feel it.
He steals that scene. He's in one scene in this movie and he steals it. Oh my God.
Yeah. Mark Hamill is amazing as this grandfather. And then, of course, oh my God, it was so great to see my childhood crush, Mia Sara, back on screen. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Mia Sara, back on screen. And she was amazing. She plays a grandmother who's married to Mark Hamill's grandfather, who is this beautifully moral individual who gives out the worst life advice.
Yeah.
There is a lot. I mean, there is a lot that happens, and I don't even want to describe what each chapter is about, but each chapter kind of traverses genres as well. It is such a complex and difficult film to put together. And if you read the novella, it kind of works as a novella because I think your expectation as a reader is very different. And I think readers in general, people who read books, are very different from people who just watch movies. And so when you think of bridging those two things, The Life of Chuck, I think, is an incredibly complex movie to pull off because it can come off, if not executed well, as being utterly disjointed and pointless. And Flanagan doesn't fall victim to that.
Yeah.
Everything here is kind of tied together beautifully and you accept it. Like, you don't even have to suspend disbelief in that sense because everything is kind of rooted in emotion as opposed to concepts.
Yeah.
And so even though chapter 1 is high concept, we'll call it that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're a fan of the genre. It doesn't matter if you even truly understand what is happening. What matters are these characters and what they're feeling and what they mean to Chuck's multitudes. Like, all of that's just so beautiful. And honestly, I think it's one of the most complex movies that I've seen this year. And I don't think it gets enough credit for that because on the face of it, as you're watching it unfold from chapter 3, chapter 2, chapter 1, it feels very simple. It feels simplistic on the face of it, but actually I think it's a lot more than that.
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Like, can I just say one thing before you ask me a
Sure.
question? You know, when they were selling this movie, they were selling it as science fiction, which is fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And I think it's like one of the genre descriptors. I think even if you go online and if you look up this movie and you read the descriptor, I think it still says sci-fi as one of the genre descriptors. And I think that's just dumb as all shit. But anyway, carry on. What's your question?
My question is, which is your favorite chapter?
Oh, easy.
Oh.
Yeah. Can you guess
Okay.
which one?
Ooh, can I guess which one? Chapter 2?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to be chapter 2 either.
Yeah, so my favorite is chapter 1, which is the third chapter in the movie, but
Yes.
it's called chapter 1, and it's
Yeah.
a real throwback Stephen King Stand By Me coming of age story.
Mm.
And this one is just executed like the movies we grew up watching.
Yeah.
And the kicker of this chapter, like there are a few kickers. There are like 3 big moments for me. There's a moment on the stairs, there's the moment when Mark Hamill's kind of drunk, and there's the moment right at the very end of the chapter. Just real gut punches. Yeah, that was my favorite. What about you?
I don't know. I thought the right answer was I can't pick one, because I can't pick one. Chapter 2 is called Buskers Forever. And that is what a lot of the trailer uses footage from. Thinking back at what that chapter is, it almost feels like, yeah, that feels like a nothing chapter. But in the wider context of the film, and even while you're watching it, you get so wrapped up in the story of what Chuck is doing, what Chuck is experiencing, that it is not a wasted 30 minutes, 35 minutes, whatever it was, right? And I think that is what I love about this movie. That on its own, if you take it out of context, it feels like a bunch of nothing burger. But putting it together in the order that Mike Flanagan's got it in, again, I don't know. I haven't read the novella, so I don't know if this is the way it was presented to the reader. But the way the film is sort of structured, taking each chapter out on its own would feel like, yeah, that felt like nothing. But as a whole piece, it all works to get you in the right mood to have your heart ripped out right at the final shot of this movie. The final sequence kicker is just, and you need all of the previous minutes.
Which also, and I know it was written by Stephen King in his novella, but that final moment also feels like a signature Flanagan move.
Yeah, absolutely.
This movie is also a great example of how to use a voiceover narration.
Mm.
Because right from the off, it is set up as a novel. It is set up with the words chapter 3 as a novel.
Yeah.
And then you have Nick Offerman doing the voiceover, calm, thoughtful, old grandfather story style. And it just kind of works because you know what you're getting yourself into. And despite the voiceover, in some senses, explaining what's happening on screen, it feels like your hand is being held in the best possible way.
Even with a narrator, it still feels like the golden rule of cinema, which is show, don't tell, is still being adhered to.
It's just a beautiful movie. I saw it on the big screen in Singapore at the projector, which is unfortunately now closing down. It used to be my go-to place to watch movies that will never be released in Malaysia. Now I don't know where I'm going to see those movies, but I watched it on the big screen. Then I came home when it was available on digital. I watched it again, and I have to watch it a third time because my wife hasn't seen it, and I want her to watch it because I like showing her movies that will destroy her and devastate her emotionally. It's very fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't deal with the fallout of that.
But I don't think there is another movie other than Superman that I have watched more than once this year in 2025.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch it. Like, I'm genuinely excited to watch this for the third time. Because I think I'm discovering new things, especially about the narrative structure and the way Flanagan kind of pulls all of this together. And of course, that twist at the end, right? There is a twist, or there's a reveal at the end. And it isn't one of those I see dead people kind of reveals. It isn't that Bruce Willis is fucking dead, but yet there is an emotional impact from this reveal.
It's emotional catharsis
Yes.
right at the end. Yeah.
Yet again, this is one of those things where you realize the power of cinema. Like when I watched it on the big screen, there was not a dry eye. Everyone was walking out of the cinema at the end, just like rubbing their eyes and sniffing. And I'm like, well, there you go. That was a great fucking communal experience. Like everyone got it. Everyone was moved. Anyway, we can't watch it on the big screen, but it's available to watch on digital and you can purchase The Life of Chuck. So, we highly recommend that you track down this movie and watch it. We promise you will have a wonderful experience. Mike Flanagan does it again. Let us know what you think once you've seen it. You know how to reach out. Our Instagram is @GogglerMY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.